Good morning, everyone. This is Jody King. I'm the Assistant Director with Alaska Apex Accelerator, and I want to welcome you to today's presentation in my How to Use SAM series. And this morning we're focusing on searching contract opportunities and how to use this site to the best advantage for your business. We have a lot of information to go through, so let's get started. Again, because I'm going to do a lot of the presentation in the SAM website as a demonstration, if there's any particular search areas that you would like me to do for the demonstration, feel free to add those NAICS codes or a couple of keywords in the Q&A box. Thanks, Woody. I see that you've added that. Okay, perfect. Let's get started. So, here's what we're going to talk about. We're going to do a quick how is it all linked. We're going to review the SAM workspace, which is going to take about the first 15 minutes. We're going to go through the workspace. We're going to talk about role assignments, which seems a little odd as to why are those important with using the contract opportunities website, and we'll talk about that. And then we're going to talk about gathering search criteria. And really that third bullet, that gathering search criteria, is really the biggest part of understanding how to do the search. What are we looking for? How are we going to build that search criteria? And then we're going to go into contract opportunities, do the demonstrations. We're going to talk about notice search, and we're going to spend a few minutes at the end talking about subcontractor reports. All right, so how is the data linked? If you've taken any of my webinars before, you've seen this screen because it's a great reminder of this is just one component as we are building our business relationship with the federal government. And because the federal government is pretty good at posting a lot of information, not just solicitation about the agencies itself, it's a good reminder to where can we look as we want to build that relationship with our federal agencies, with those buyers, and where can we find them? So again, this morning we're focusing on the SAM.gov, but I do want to remind you, it does, all of this information is very circular in nature. As we're trying to expand or diversify into a different government region, we can look at the agency websites, we can look at the FPDS, the Federal Procurement Data System, at what has the agency contracted previously. For civilian agencies, this is uploaded, new awards are uploaded within 24 hours. DoD still has a quarter delay, but we can see what's going on here. USA spending, where's the funds flowing, and of course SBA, the dynamic small business search when we're looking for those partners, teaming partners, subcontractors, potential primes, in which we can do those contract opportunity searches, looking for those solicitations. So all of that's really great information. Of course, we have GSA that I didn't mention in my little circle, their mass schedules, the multiple awards schedule. You can look at their eQuery library and see how many of these awards are going to through GSA schedules and not necessarily posted through SAM. This, I think, as the federal government moves forward to a centralized concept of procurement of commercial items, in those common denominator commercial items are going to be pushed for all agencies through GSA. I think the mass schedules are going to be something that we're going to see more heavily used, especially in that interim as all of this kind of defines itself. But that's kind of a new to come this year into next year. But for right now, let's get back to our topic, which is going to be the SAM website. So how's the data linked other than a pictorial? Well, we usually start with SAM. So if I meet with a client, we're doing that market research. What does your business sell? Who are your commercial clients, and who are those governmental counterparts for those commercial clients? Then SAM is a great starting point because it's going to give that snapshot of what's going on in the here and now. From there, we can go into FPDS and do that. Well, has the agency bought this activity before? Who were the vendors? So kind of that past procurement search. We can go into USA spending if we want to follow that flow of funds. We can go to the agency websites, agency budget sites, back to SAM, maybe into the dynamic small business search as we're looking for those teaming partners and the incumbent information, and of course onto competitor websites. And that's the only one I don't really have in that previous slide of how is the data linked. So this is just kind of this use of how that information flows. All right, so little teaser talking about SAM, and then we're going to swap gears. So I want to talk about the SAM.gov workspace. So we're going to do a quick review of the workspace itself, and we'll see how that's tied in. So when you first log into SAM, this is where you land. It's just kind of a quick screenshot of the top portion of this, and I have the entire worksite broken down into multiple screenshots. So you land here. We're ready to rock and roll. If we're going to just talk about search, we'd click on the search button and move right into the search space, which we'll do here shortly. But for the workspace, let's break this down, because the very top box that we run into is all of our individual account specific information. So we have our account details, roles, email settings, save search, follow searches, the email that's linked for your login, and any new notifications. So as you can see, this is an older screenshot from April. What I have here, you can see that my notifications, I backed up a slide, my notifications, and I just grabbed this morning and said, hey, there's new information, rewrited the existing technical manual. So here's where you can post that. So there is interesting information, both general and then, as you can see here, specific to any solicitations that you might be following. So it's worth a glance as you're logging into SAM, just quick scan those notifications. Next, sliding down, we have our entity information. And this, if you're updating your SAM, this little green pill bar shaped section is exactly where we're looking to see if you have entity registrations. Now, if you are the entity administrator, there should be something in at least one of these circles. This is my work SAM that I use for like webinars, so obviously I don't have any entities registered under this username, so that's why it's all zeros. If you are the EA, you log into your workspace and you're seeing zeros, then most likely that data link between your username, your email, and that UEI number for that entity has been broken. But if that's the case, you're welcome to reach out to us. But that is also the subject of a whole different webinar. So let's keep rolling down. We have our contracting area, and of course, if you had contract awards, you'd have information here. Entity reporting, if these are going to be applicable for any of your contracts, you'll be able to click this See All, and those will be posted as the agencies trigger that you have reporting mechanisms that you are required to follow through with. Subcontracting reporting, reference services, and of course, request a role. So this is where I want to move into and talk about role information. Jumping ahead of myself, sorry about that. Let's jump back to the next slide. So you can access roles for a couple of different ways. You can click on it from here, or if you scroll all the way down to the bottom of that home screen in the workspace, you can click select a role. Before we do that, I just want to point out a couple of information on this profile. So if you just click here in your information and click on account details, you can come in here and update. So if you hit the green update button, it's going to let you update this. Please note you cannot change your email. If you have a new email or you have to change your new email, what you'll need to do is create a whole new account. If you're the entity administrator, then you'll have to do a notarized entity, the EA letter, to get that entity information linked to your new email. But once you've set that account, you can't change that. That's the only information you really can't change. You can change the name, you can change the contact, but this is static. Here for API keys, I don't really play with these much. I know I keep getting email notifications that they do eventually expire, and then you just have to go in and click update and it'll reset those keys. I have a definition of that here. And the last on this is that deactivating your account. If by chance you accidentally, let me get that enunciation, if you accidentally deactivate your account don't panic. It doesn't delete the data. It simply just makes your account that from active to deactive. It no longer shows in a public search. You can actually go in and start like you're going to do a new registration. You're going to list your business name and you'll be able to recover that information. Although once you do deactivate your accounts, it will delete any roles, save search, or other account information that you've saved, and you'll have to rebuild that. So don't panic. If you have accidentally deactivated or somebody else does that, that is recoverable data. All right, so talking about role management, I just want to give you the link here for you can download the role management guide. It's got some great screenshots and processes of going through that. I also have the screenshots that I've gone through the process to add roles. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. I've got about 11 slides, so it's quite a bit on the steps. I'm just going to point out a few things, but really I want to be able to spend the bulk of our time working in contract opportunities. So one of the things and the reason why I decided to talk about role management in this particular webinar for this particular topic is if you're not the entity administrator, you might need that role, especially for searching for contract opportunities, this opportunity administrator, to be able to see any solicitations that have any classified documents that are posted. We don't see that often. I think that might be something that we see more frequently, especially if you're looking at DoD work, but that you actually have to have permission from your company, from that entity administrator, to be able to access and download any documents that have been deemed classified. So it's been a while since I've seen those solicitations. They are definitely out there, but if that's the case, you're not the entity administrator, you're looking for the documents in that SAM search, in that synopsis window, and it has a box where it says click to access. What it's doing is you're requesting permission from the contracting officer to be able to access those secure documents. And what they're looking for is this contract opportunities administrator role or data entry role that gives your permission from your business to be able to be responsible for those secure documents. So with that in mind, it's just the reason why I decided I want to go through this. As entity administrator, you can assign yourself those roles, the other domains, contract opportunities, and entity reporting. You can kind of see it here. And you can see kind of what this looks like from this screenshot. All right, so again, you can access these two different ways. You can click roles from the workspace, from the information pertaining to your individual account, or at the bottom of the screen where you can request a role. If you are the entity administrator and you need to assign roles, you can't do that from your login. You actually need the individuals that want to access or have a role for your particular entity that has been registered under that UEI number. They have to request from their login, create a SAM login, log into the workspace, they request a role, and then the administrator is able to grant the role. So it has to initiate from the requester. When requesting a role, you can see here once you click on role, either access point, this is the big box that you are going to see here. You're going to link your entity using the UEI or cage code. You're going to select your role, and you can see them over here, entity reporting, contract opportunities, or entity registration. You're going to select the domain, and you're going to add comments. You have to add a comment. You can't leave this box blank. Even if you type in the word please and go ahead and submit. So when we're talking about roles, again, we have these three domains: entity reporting, contract opportunities, and entity registration. So you can select and request all three by selecting all three. You can see I've clicked on it. They show up in the box here. If I'm like, oh, wait, I only want two of these, you just click the X and that'll move it on. So you're going to select your domain and then you're going to send that. One of the things with the domain is you can see it listed here. is the role within the domain. And this is where it gets a little bit confusing because there's a lot of repeated words. So let me talk over here, number 2 for roles. We can see the domains in bold, and these are the roles available under those domains. For entity reporting, it's just that you are able to enter the data and submit the reports. For contract opportunities, again, you can just view the documents, you can view, or data entry. Again, data entry is going to let you interact with any of the documentation that might be secured. Entity registration, and again, this is where it's tied to that UEI number. Data entry means they can go in and make it editable. Viewer is just that. They can go in, they can see all of the information, they can look at the profile, but they cannot make any changes to the profile. Having that viewer, they get to see more information that's specific to your entity that's not necessarily available in the public view, such as bank information, and more personal information, the reps and certs, how the reps and certs were answered. So usually you're going to have that data entry. You generally are only going to have one entity administrator, and you can see the role here, administrator, and that's usually tied to the entity registration. You can establish more than one administrator level for either the contract opportunities or entity registration. That's up to you for your company to assign. It used to only allow one per entity administrator per UEI number, but they have opened that up to allow for backups. All right, so that's where it gets confusing because you see data entry twice when you're going through here, but keep in mind these are roles that are linked to the various domains. From the entity administrator side, they actually will see a pending request at the top of their workspace right next to notifications. So this is why it has to be triggered from the requester side, because from the entity administrator, there's no way to go in and assign a role unless somebody has initiated that request. These next few screenshots are kind of all for the entity administrator, what it looks like when they click on it. From here where it says see all requests, you can see the links, you can see the history of any that you've approved. You just have your filter if you want to do this through organization, if you have multiple organizations that you track. And from the role requester, again, here's all the things that you can do. You do have to, again, apply a comment whether you've approved or rejected the assigned roles. You can go in and sign and edit roles. And again, the permissions attached are really dependent upon the domain that the individual requested. So this does change just a little bit. For those that have requested, here's the email. This is one you've submitted, and once into the EA, you get that you have a pending request for data entry. And then once you've assigned that role, of course, the system notification. And for the entity administrator, you can go into the user directory. You can search it down by UEI number. In fact, if you have multiple, you'll have to select that. And then you can go see who all has the role assignments, the emails associated to, and you can go in and either assign additional roles once they have it, or you can edit or delete. All right. So just screenshots on all of these processes. Again, what the roles look like. This is from the entity administrator's workspace. You can see for entity reporting, these are the options. For entity registration, here's your options. Contract opportunities for options. So the entity administrator actually does see more options than the individual initiating the request. All right, so back to our workspace. Again, I kind of really pushed through it. I didn't want to spend a lot of time on the roles, but it's nice to have those screenshots. And again, you have the link for that user manual. Now, for your email settings, you can go in and update. This is for your individual account. How frequently do you want notifications for these various activities? So if you're following a solicitation, do you want to just get those once a week? Do you want that as soon as it's posted? You can go in and set that. How quickly do you get those notifications? All right, saved searches. That's a great feature here, and we'll play with this a little bit once we get into SAM and do the play in contract opportunities. As you see something you're interested in, you can click follow that opportunity, and it saves oops, I jumped ahead. Saved searches means that we've created a search. We've built our search criteria and we're looking for specific activities, and you can save those searches. You get to name them, and then you can see here, like for example, in March, I created one that's just everything sources sought for Alaska Place of Performance, or I'm looking just for Forest Service air charters as examples. So you can create the search and build them and save them, name them, so that when you log into your SAM profile on the workspace, you can click Save Searches and you can go in and then run these. These do not automatically run. I don't know if any of you were around back when it was the Fed Biz Ops, federal business opportunities. You could create your searches and those automatically ran on a daily basis and would send you emails. SAM does not do that. You can build and save them, but you have to trigger them each time that you want them to run to get that updated information. But again, actions you can show if you want to remove, delete, download, etc. Now, for more information, so here you can see how do you go through. This is a search. This is where I ran the sources sought that I showed you on the previous screen. My save search, I ran it, and then again, you can click on the action buttons depending if you want to save or download. Okay, for followed records, this is again, you see something that you're interested in, you can access it right from that home screen, from the workspace, and it's a great way instead of trying to track something and go find it every single time. If you have an interest in that activity, whether you're bidding on it or just want to see the award notifications, or there's something that triggered for you to help remember to follow up with the agency, or look for subcontracting opportunities, etc., you can go ahead and follow an activity. And what that does is it saved it under the followed records. If you decide, nope, I'm done, I've changed my mind, you can click on that contract, click on the title, and then when you're on that home page, you can click unfollow. So this is a great way for tracking. Anything that you have clicked as a followed activity, if there are any modifications to that notification, if it's a solicitation notice and there's been an amendment posted, you will get an email that says, hey, there is a new, there has been a change to this activity, and it lists it out. So this is a great way, especially if something you're going to definitely bid on and you want to make sure that you're not missing any of those solicitation amendments, then absolutely you want to follow that activity to make sure that you are being notified if there's any amendments. All right, that was in a nutshell, rolled together, the SAM workspace. So a lot of it is pertained and wrapped around the solicitation search component of SAM. So let's talk about defining the target. And this is just a quick, here are my favorite websites that I recommend anytime I do any market research training. And I am using these websites constantly throughout the week, working with various clients, looking up information, trying to figure out how does the agencies code the solicitation documents and code those awards, whether we're looking at past awards or we're looking forward within SAM for what's upcoming opportunities. So we need to understand how these are codified. So first of all, it's simple. Let's start with keywords. Just as I've asked you to list for me in the Q&A box, how are we describing the activity? We can do one keyword search, or we can do 2 to 3 string for keyword, like custom programming, custom computer programming, etc. We can do those searches. They're a little random in SAM. We'll play with that, but we want to know those keywords. NAICS codes, those industry identifier, of course, I hugely recommend go to the census.gov website. They are the federal agency responsible for maintaining those NAICS codes. Those NAICS codes are updated every 5 years, and sometimes you'll go decades without seeing a change, and then you never know, all of a sudden they change and remodify an industry string. So go to the source where those are developed. Our product service codes or federal supply groups are really helpful because they further delineate within that NAICS code. So let's say we use the engineering NAICS code, which is that, what is that, 541330, and it's broad. It covers all of the various disciplines for engineering, civil, structural, mechanical, and you're looking for specific, we can go into these PSC codes or the federal supply groups, and then we can further delineate what is it that we're looking for. So knowing how to find these as well are incredibly handy, especially if we're looking at past procurement activity. Being able to filter these is really phenomenal. A few different sites to look these up. We have the Product and Service Code Manual, acquisition.gov website. We have the DPCAP Product Service Code Selection Tool, which was kind of interesting. I was playing with that a little bit before the webinar started this morning. And Outreach Systems, Outreach is the company that we use for their CRM, the customer relationship management software. Plus, we use their software for our bid match, which is a solicitation search software. They have a fabulous website where you can sit and look at theirs. They have them listed for both the service group and supply groups, and you can put your keywords in, and then you'll get a list of potential PSC codes. Really handy to use. They also keep everything updated. They're the only non-governmental website I would probably direct anyone to when looking for this information. And of course, FPDS is where I go, that past procurement database, when I'm trying to figure out what is the current trend for PSC codes under these various NAICS code. I like to go in and I just simply enter that NAICS code in the search box. I go ahead and sort by descending date sign because I want to know what's being used now, not a decade ago. And then I simply, without really caring about who the awardee or the agency is, I kind of just scroll through. And when you look kind of to the right side, you can see the PSC code, and it's a great way to see all the PSC codes that have been linked with that particular NAICS code. Kind of my favorite method to do a quick search, especially if I'm trying to get that more specific designation for my NAICS code. Unique entity identifiers, you can do a search in SAM by unique identifiers in the contract opportunities. Maybe you'll get some award notifications, but just as a reminder for just data search in general, having those UEI numbers are a great search. DODAX, the Department of Defense Activity Address Code, those are specific agencies at a specific physical location, and that's coded. That's a great way to find a list of contracting officers for a particular agency, especially right now as we've had such a shuffle. Is thinking of that shell game, where's the ball under the three cups, that shuffle of contracting officers. You may not need to find, well, who's still at a particular agency. Well, we can do a search by that agency. That contracting office is DODAC, and it's the first six characters in a contract. So it's very easy to find that information, pull it up and do a search, but we can use that for search. Here's the website where you can actually go in and find the various DODACs and look for specific locations by agency. All right, even though they say Department of Defense, all contracting offices have that DODAC code, even if they're a civilian agency. Federal organization codes. Now, these are really great. You're predominantly going to be using the search data within SAM or within FPDS. You can use these various codes. This is great when you're trying to get a specific arm of an agency, specific department. Such here, you can see when I did Department of Defense, there's quite a few, obviously Air Force, Army, Navy, but like the Defense Test Resource Management Center or in the Inspector General. So we can go into these sub-tiers and see a list of some of the unique like DCAA, DECA, et cetera, if we're looking for solicitation or award announcements. All right, so let's talk about the SAM search filters. And then honestly, guys, after this, we really are going to start diving into the active search where we're gonna log back into SAM. So I'm sure it's logged me out by now, and we're gonna really kind of get comfortable playing with these filters and breaking our search, finding out what we can and can't do. All right, so here are the search filters. I've got them all listed from what you would see in the left if we expanded each one of these subsets. And most of the time, I just start off searching with Alaska or solicitation active. Solicitation is the notice type, in active versus inactive. If you are looking for something and you put in a keyword that's very specific and you come back with no matches found, sometimes if you go down and click inactive and then maybe go to the dates and look backwards, say past year, past 6 months, you can see how often was that particular keyword, or if you're looking for something specific. All right, so again, filters, keyword, federal organization, the dates, the notice types, your product service codes, both NAICS and PSC, your set aside types, place of performance, contract awardee information, and of course the status for active versus inactive. All right, so here's just a quick example. I grabbed this morning where I went in and did a keyword construction and place of performance Alaska. So I want to talk about using place of performance both in that as a filter, place of performance, or as a keyword. If I use the word Alaska, say I'm only looking for activities where the work is being done in Alaska. Now I can filter that by place of performance Alaska, but I might be missing opportunities. If I use Alaska as a keyword, then you might be surprised how many more, you might see 5 or 6 more show up in your search results. When we do a place of performance for Alaska, that one, the contracting officer has to have defined the place of performance. And two, unless we do multiple like Washington, Oregon, and Alaska, we might be restricting ourselves from regional contracts where there's multiple states, multiple areas within that place of performance. And that's where if we use Alaska as a keyword versus the place of performance filter, then we might see more. So for example, the Forest Service road MATOC, their multiple award task order contract, that MATOC covers the entire Northwest region, Alaska, Washington, Oregon, because they have the centralized contracting office, or did. But they have that more centralized, so we might have buyers that are in Washington or Oregon soliciting for activities here in Alaska. So if we're seeing more and more bundled regional, especially for a multiple award, where they're going to have multiple awardees under that, and then kind of sub bid. So just wanted to throw that out there. Keep that in mind. If you're only doing place of performance, it doesn't hurt occasionally to throw that state in as a keyword and see what you're missing. All right. So again, here's that demonstration, construction, place of performance Alaska. We have some activities we can go in and start looking. And then another that I was looking at where we're talking for engineering services Alaska. And sometimes I want to go and add that inactive where I might say updated date for past year. So with that, let me get out of and get into SAM. Let me make sure I am still signed in. Sorry about this, it always times out on me. Oops. Huh, that's interesting. I thought it would break because I accidentally hit that period in there. All right, so we're back to where we've just done a search. And honestly, my only criteria was place of performance, Alaska. So this was kind of just my baseline search. Now looking in contract opportunities, again, we can see the search filter. Let me make that a little bit bigger. If I make it so large that it's popping off your screen or cutting it off, you guys just let me know. All right, so we have our filter by. Let me back up even one more. So from the home page, because we've logged in, we're in our workspace, just getting started. We're going to click search. And they've extended the domains. I don't know how recently you've gone in here where it has all domains, contracting, federal. It's worth taking the time to select your domain. You're going to get much better search results. We're looking at contracting and specifically contract opportunities. Now that I've defined my domain, we can come in here and pick. Now we can do, again, let's see, do multiple keywords. Now you can see how it's done that in quotes, so it is looking for that entire string. Now, as soon as we enter a search term, you can see that it's automatically starting to provide results. If we want to, we can come in here and then start being much more specific. Well, if I'm using this because I'm trying to build search criteria, I can start looking through these various, and where it is computer programming, like, well, how does that do with vessel architecture? What is that keyword? Where's that put in here? And we can come down to the classification and start pulling that information. So NAICS code, custom computer programming services, and here's that product service code, that DA01 for IT telecom services. So sometimes keywords can be too vague, and it's good to sit and play with them and try to figure out what is the right combination of keywords that's going to help you find activities. Sometimes even putting brand names if you sell, activities, oh, and of course I can't think of, I was going to say like tractor, but I've completely forgotten brand names. Shame on me. But things along these lines, if you are a supplier for specific, you can put in the product name, come in here, see how that is activated. So keywords are pretty good. There is a search editor. I'm not going to play with that much. I don't use it often. I like to stay in the simple search. And as we are, I'm going to think of the more farming, tractor. See, as we start adding additional keywords, it's going to further tighten my search. So we can see here, because again, I'm always saying it's okay to break your search. Play with this because we don't have to start over. We can simply remove one of these terms, or we can add where we're searching inactive. So now we can see where it's going back. This one's like a year old, where we can start seeing if we're looking for a specific, if you're thinking about diversifying into a new product line and you want to see has there been agency interest in that activity, then absolutely you want to play within those inactive. You can come back here and say update at any time. You can see custom date or past year. So you can see no, not in the last year. All right. If this is the case that happens, we can just simply come in here, delete one of the key terms, switch a key term, and again, it's going to go back to that main search. Let me show you here, place of performance. You can select zip code, state, country, but if we do Alaska here, and again, I don't have any other indicators, I'm just looking at activity for Alaska. You can see I have 102 results versus if I use Alaska here as a search term. So again, we're getting a lot. If this is the case where you're getting just a ridiculous amount of, oh, that's because it deleted my search term. There we go, that's better. So we went from 100 to 200, where we're using that as a keyword. So it's worth double checking depending on what you are looking at. If you are trying to find something specific, using these date range, updated in the past year, past 3 months, especially if you want an inactive filter on top of that and you're really looking for something specific that it might have just closed, then using these updated date as opposed to response due dates, again, great for opportunity. All right, let me clear my search. Occasionally, if it just starts getting really buggy, then I recommend coming down here, reset. If that's still not doing it, then I just simply click on the Uncle Sam top hat, hit search, and then go through it again. Every now and then, if you're playing in here a lot, your search just starts to get muddy. All right, so let's talk about some other keywords. Federal organizations, I showed you a screenshot of that. If you click here, it's really going to show you, and this can be incredibly helpful. So let's just say I'm going to use the Forest Service. Okay, so we'll see, gosh, I can't find them. Forest Service is actually under USDA and Department of Agriculture. So maybe then come down here, and now we can see that Forest Service. And we can do a search and see all activity for that particular. If we come in here after adding a federal organization and maybe do a place of performance, this is how we can start seeing active, can even come in here inactive, maybe the last 3 months, and just looking at the activities. There we go. I clicked on the name, they gave me the agency that it was under. I'm gonna just back what happened when I clicked here, but we can go through, and then if we come down here to contact information, we can start building who are the contracting officers that are still here within the agency. And you can see this particular contract office is Portland. I happen to know Ray Paget's up here, but this is Veronica apparently is down in the Portland office. And when we were talking about the DODAX, here that is. So it's this code up until the year. The Q is a quote, and then this is their 19th quote for this fiscal year. This gives you that DODAC. If we're looking for this activity, then we can then take that and use that as a search. Go back one more time. Reset my search. Sometimes that reset, honest to goodness, just doesn't work well. Okay. And we break our search. So apparently for DODAC, that particular is just going to be difficult. All right. If that's the case, then honestly, we can just do it like we did, find the agency and the location. That is the joy of contract opportunities. Every now and then, it just gets muddy and you get poor search results. Again, if you find that, and we just saw an active solicitation, that should have pulled up for the DODAC. One more example. Okay, so this is the new internal server error. Whenever you are getting this, that means it's not finding anything and the search is not knowing what, it doesn't know what to look for. All right, you can search by solicitation number here as you have in the example. If you find, you look for the solicitation, you add the dashes, it's random. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Often I'll add a solicitation number without the dashes, and then if it's not finding it, then add the dashes back in. The dashes usually are between the DODAC, the contract year, the activity type, and then the number. Okay, so let's play some more, and then I will start going through your guys' request for. Okay, so we have federal organizations, and I've used this a lot when I'm trying to, again, find contracting officers in a different region, or I'm looking for subgroups, or I'm just looking, I just want to learn for specific. So this can be an incredibly handy tool looking for specific agencies. Date range, again, we have the response offers due. If we're looking anything that's coming up in the next 2 days, again, I would tie that to a place of performance or some secondary filter, keyword, etc. Just clear that. Notice type. This is really handy if we are looking for something specific. So say we've decided today we're just going to go out there and we're going to go through and see sources sought notices, maybe for a particular agency, because we are looking at building inroads with a new agency. We want to see what those opportunities. Obviously, I would filter that, again, place of performance or a keyword or NAICS code, because, wow, that's a lot. You can even just go updated in the past week. There we go. That makes it a little more of a usable number. So I do use these dates a lot. And again, granted, I'm still looking for very generic information. So coming in here looking for sources sought is a great quick way to see where's those agency communications. You can come in here, pre-solicitation award notice. If there's something that you heard, hey, this was just posted and we're having a hard time finding it, sometimes maybe just looking for those award notices. And this is where you can even put in the DODAC, because they're going to be listed. I'm sorry, not DODAC, but the UEI, if you heard somebody got that activity. So this is where doing a search for that UEI number in the contract opportunities domain, this is what it's going to pull up, award notices. All right, so great information, combined synopsis, sales, surplus property. I don't do this often unless I'm looking for specific examples of sources sought. Product or service information, this is where we get for NAICS codes and product service codes. Let me come down here. And again, I just want to reset this. This is a really robust tool. Oops, sorry guys. All right, so NAICS codes. And I've given you the website for the Census Bureau, and it's really great. You can get in there and look. Now in SAM, one thing that's really nice compared to the predecessor for FBO is you can do partial NAICS code searches. And this is really, really handy when you're not sure, especially if you're trying to find something that someone told you, yeah, that's posted, but they couldn't quite remember what it was called or specific information to actually make it easy to find. So coming in here and doing partial NAICS codes is really handy. So let's just start with like 54, and we can start to see that professional scientific, so it's really large. A better breakdown, you can do the same. I just want to show you here. You can do the same thing where you do a partial search in the Census Bureau website. It's going to give you that hierarchy. So professional scientific, 5411's legal, 5412 accounting, 5413 architect engineers. So it does give you that breakdown. So this is really a handy tool when you're trying to figure out something unique and how is it coded, and we need a broader search point. So let me hop back up here. So we can start doing partials, so like 5411, and now it's going to break down here. Office lawyer, notaries, etc., other legal services. We do 56. Car services. So this is going to help us kind of pull up some of this information too. So you can do partial NAICS code. Let me do this for construction. So let's just do 237, because this is all of, the start of some of our specialty, 237 or 238. And we can come down here and start to see those activity. But if I just hit enter now, I'm going to get anything that's under these various subgroups because I've done a partial NAICS code. And that's interesting that it's actually filtered even with that combination of. You're not going to see multiple. Okay. And then again, we can come in here, place performance or date range or someplace like that to kind of help filter that down. So this is a great way using these partial NAICS code. If you're trying to do a broader search, you're trying to find how are agencies coding this, what NAICS codes are they using, coming in here and doing that. Again, especially for engineering 5413, that we can get a broader look at. We're getting a wider search result. All right, the PSC codes, we can kind of see their numeric base. I haven't played much with trying to find. So say we're looking for architect, engineer, maybe you guys sell draft tables and you want to see if the agency, nope, search inactive. Well, here we go. It's been used before, a couple of years. Yeah. All right. Set-asides, this is a great opportunity too for looking any sort of 8A sole source, 8A set-aside, hub zone source, sole source. You can just kind of scroll through and see for these different ISB, the Indian Small Business Economic Enterprise. So you can go through the various set-asides to kind of filter as well. Place of performance, again, you can see zip code, state, country. This is handy if you're looking, especially if you're looking for out of state. Say we're looking at Guam. Probably help if I, all right, I am not going to even just, you guys get that. And of course, active and inactive. If you seem like you're getting a weird number of opportunity, again, or getting old information, then just make sure you don't still have that inactive filter. So that's the various filters. Be comfortable of going in and trying combinations and use different and break your search, because all you have to do is remove that last search filter and it's going to go back to that previous. So you can get in and out of these searches. Feel free to get in here and break. All right, so let's start with your guys' specific instead of me just doing general. We've kind of played with the search filters and let's talk about this. So we're going to try 611-430, which is professional management development training. So it's nice if we're starting with the NAICS code, if we have that search, so 611-430. Okay, so we can see professional management, but this might even be where maybe backing up a couple of NAICS codes so we can get a broader, especially if you do administrative as well, you can start to see I'm going to get more search results breaking that down, going out to a broader search. But let's go ahead and start here and looking at activities. Now, when we're playing in contract opportunities, what is your goal for your search at that time? And that really helps keep us from chasing the various rabbit trails, looking for this, that, and the other. Are you looking for a specific solicitation that you want to actively bid on? Are you going in because you're looking at agencies that might buy what you sell as defined by that NAICS code? Are you looking for potential teaming partners? You're looking that you are a supplier, vendor, or your comfort zone really is as a subcontractor, and then how are you looking for larger activities? So kind of knowing why we're going to search is really going to help when we start playing with the filters and having stronger searches. Okay, so we can come in here. Now I'm going to assume, Woodry, sorry about that, that you are not interested necessarily in the national level because, well, it's 273, that's a lot to search. Now, in your place of performance, you can stack. So the nice thing of here is adding multiple is actually going to expand your search versus, here we go, we don't want Wake Island. Oh, that's interesting. Come on. There we go, Alaska, Washington. Sorry, I'm being impatient. And we can start to see no matches found. All right, well, it's going to further tighten where you see this for both locations. In that case, what did I break? All right, do you see how it does this? I'm going to reset, start over, contract opportunities. I'm going to come back in here under the product or service. It always takes me a moment to remember where the NAICS codes are. And that was 611-430. Okay. And then again, we can see we're looking at 273 results. If we're looking at, we can play with the date. We should have everything that's current and active. And again, for place of performance, if you have a broad geographic area that you respond, I recommend just doing one place at a time. So place of performance, there we go. Give it a moment for Washington. So actually, that's kind of interesting. We're not even seeing any of those that are currently active in place of performance for Washington. If you're looking for District of Columbia, there we go, DC. It's funny, up here when we say Washington, we almost automatically think of the state. If you're on the East Coast, you say Washington, the default is District of Columbia and not the state. But you can come in here and play with that geographic area. If we are looking for specific jobs and we want to specific in our terminology for our keywords, then what I usually recommend is looking at some of these titles, looking at the activities, critical stress management, because this professional manage, it is very, very broad. And this might be where adding the PSC code can be really beneficial. So let me show you just real quick. FPDS, again, I love this website for looking at PSC codes. I've entered that. Again, we're still looking at that same NAICS code, Professional Management and Development Training. Back over to FPDS. I'm going to hit enter. And it's always going to pop up a second screen. And I'm going to come down here, descending, date signed, because I don't care about old stuff. I want to see how are the agencies using that now. Give it a moment to sort, and then you can see PSC codes right here. So other education, training, support, professional, other, education, training, curriculum development. Well, maybe that's what it is. You develop equipment, certifications, accreditations, support management, this R799 support management. Okay, so we can kind of start to see the various PSC codes. So if you're really looking for something specific, let's try this R4. Anytime you see the 999 or 990, that's always other, miscellaneous. So let's see if we grab that. We want to come in here in SAM and we can add that as well. And now we can get really specific. And again, the only thing I'm not filtering is the geographic area. So if you have an industry where, especially for computer programming, where you don't necessarily have to be in place, like construction and site prep where that heavy equipment has to be there, then trying to filter specifically, this can be incredibly beneficial. Questions on that? Okay. One last thing, the outreach systems website. Give me 2 seconds. I just want to show you that. Oh, PSC code lookup. Here we go, outreach systems. I just want to show you this page because this is a great way too. FPDS, you can see that combination. And what I like about this is when we were looking at that PSC code and it had the R, so it's saying R support services. See how these are broken, C to 11. This is just a great handy. We'll see, because a letter is a service number supply, C, architect engineering services. So this is kind of just a handy, how are those codes broken down if we're really trying to dig. And again, you can do the same thing here where you put in a keyword. Okay, sorry, this is supposed to be how to use SAM. I just wanted to show this. All right, so playing with this PSC codes, depending if you're really trying to dial into something specific, can be incredibly helpful. All right, let me go ahead and clear this and hop to our next. Come on, pop out. There we go. Okay, so looking for keywords that relate for manufacturing, machining, manufacturing. Okay, so let me come down here, make sure I've reset my search so I don't scramble the poor Sam brain. We're still in contract opportunities. So manufacturing is a tough one because it's so broad. I'm going to actually start with machining. Machine. Yeah. Sorry, I was typing that in and my brain's like, what are you trying to do? All right. So obviously look at this, 228. just using that word, machine, machining. We can play with combinations. You can put in industry type, like mounting fixtures, globes, valves, a lot of great, it's vast. So this is where if we're trying to build search data more than look in SAM, this is kind of using SAM to develop search data, taking a broad term and then coming in and looking at these activities, come down to where it says classification. This lets me drop through, just jump down to, and now we can start looking at, so here's a manufacturing, search, detection, navigation, guidance, aeronautical. All right, NAICS code, PSC code. What is it that you are searching? What is it that you are manufacturing? So we can start going through each one of these activities. I'm just hitting the back arrow to get back to my search. I'm going to hop down to the next one. Same thing. I'm not spending a lot of time, but I'm looking at other electronics. See again, that word other, it's got that 9 in there. Here's a PSC code, wire and cable electrical. So if you in the manufacturing, and again, this is where using those PSC codes in our search can be really, really helpful. See, now we're down to one very specific. Okay, let me get rid of that. So this is what I would do. Start with your broad keyword search, and then just kind of go through these various things, looking at the right keywords. So maybe small engine parts, okay, doesn't like that. Then back up and just try, oops, I'm not spelling that right, am I? My brain is not letting me think. All right, manufacture. So again, look at that, 24, almost 25,000. We could start being more specific as to type. But again, if we're trying to figure out how, which NAICS codes, which PSC codes, what keywords, starting broad, start playing with this. And this is where if I'm just not finding, 25,000 is too much, maybe I'm going to take that search term and I'm going to hop back over to the NAICS codes and let's start here. Okay, so I'm back in the Census Bureau's website for NAICS codes, and I want to start looking at terms. So see, now we can start seeing where manufacturing is used in a very different NAICS codes. It's so very broad. Again, we can start using pet food, you know, breaking down, and we can see all of these examples. So let's just do a partial and start breaking it this way. Okay, well, maybe we don't want to do animal. So if I'm just looking at manufacturing and I'm trying to break it by categories, just typing in like that 31, because we know it's manufacturing 31 through 33, we can kind of come down here and then start looking for our specific industry. Samson, I need another keyword from you so I can be fabrications, another good. I need what type? What's your, okay. I'll let you enter that and let's hop back over to Sam. So let's get back here. I'm going to reset, make sure I've cleaned everything. All right. So, all right. So quick question from Woodry. Where do you find and confirm you're listed for all awards? That is going to be in your entity registration. It's actually going to list whether you are all awards or federal financial assistance only. That is easier to show. You can always email me and send me your UEI or cage code, and I can do a screenshot and show you. But that's where you're going to want to search it. Ah, you found it. Great. That's where you're going to want to do your search in the entity information and pull that up. All right. Who else do we have for questions? Okay, well, we still got 15 more minutes. Let me do one more search because I've gone through. Okay, let's talk construction some more. So again, putting in combinations of words, some are more successful than others. So how we use buzzwords, product information. See how that keyword Honda, if I'm thinking tractors, small engine, is not finding anything. Ah, there we go. That's what I was trying to think of. So we can see, obviously, it's not finding it. We can sometimes put it in quotes ourselves if we're looking for combinations. Every now and then that's successful. Tractor trailer, maybe try with a dash. So please don't worry about breaking or not having search results because it's, again, we just remove that search term and we start over. So here we can start to see we're getting into that electric search. If we come down here, classification, and again, we can see, again, manufacturing, there aren't very many wholesale codes in. So if you sell stuff, wholesale retail codes, some agencies can use the wholesaler NAICS codes, but not manufacturing NAICS codes. So that is just a key term I want to throw out while we're searching, looking for that. So if it's anything that says 423, so let's come back, oops, sorry, let me click on the right thing, go back to SAM and just use that again for that manufacturing. Again, product service types, and come in here 423, merchant wholesale durable goods. And then we can start seeing and breaking down depending on. So if you're trying to find the right keywords, as opposed to just saying generator, which can be another, you can come in here, do this, just scroll down looking at the titles, hop over to classification, and how are those coded. This is how you're going to get the best use from your SAM in contract opportunities, is really understanding how is the agency classifying what it is that you do. Taking those time, play with the keywords. If you're doing a search and that keyword's coming back and it's not finding it, try adding that inactive. And then if it's really not, okay, maybe we want to see how is that coded, then hop over to the Census Bureau and try that word, that combination. Census Bureau doesn't do 2-word searches. It only likes a single word. So start breaking that down. And if you can find that rough chain, like instead of 42311, we kind of went back to that, what is that starting area, and looking, and then keywords. Honestly, looking at the NAICS code descriptions is some of the best way I found to find keywords, because when you look at the actual solicitation itself, let me just grab one here where I have the full, it has cross references as well. And it's going to give us other NAICS codes, which are really great then for handling SAM. So when you're doing your search in SAM, let me just wrap this up and then we'll quick change topics. First of all, does anybody else have anything that they would really like me to search? All right. Be comfortable using this. Use those agency, use the partial NAICS codes, use the partial PSC codes, use those federal organizations, play with your keywords. You can do this simple search where it's any words, all words, exact phrase. So if I do tractor trailer again, it's going to break those. It can start separating that. All right. Any last questions? Okay. So yes, feel comfortable using this, feel comfortable breaking it down to the point where it's either giving you an error message or it's telling you nothing's found, and then stop and think about, am I using one, before you're like, oh, the government just doesn't buy this, maybe we need to think about how it's better, a better terminology for what it is that you do. If you're getting just too many results, then maybe having a dual level, like using NAICS code and PSC codes, will help really tighten your search if you're looking for much more specific activities. Okay, so let me hop back over to our presentation slideshow, current slide, because I just do want to talk about subcontract reports. This is relatively new, that's been added to SAM. If you're looking for subcontracting opportunities, you can come in here. This is, again, contracting. When I'm doing the search, you can see, you click on contracting and subcontract reports, or even just contracting, but then you come down here and it has additional filters. So we can see here, keyword search, and then we can search subcontractor, subcontract, prime contractor, prime contract. So if you have a subcontract, I'm sorry, the contract number, so say we go from a SAM award posting where we have that UEI number, we can do a search and then see if there have been subcontracts issued. Now, obviously, if it's a new award, there might be a while before any subcontracts. And these are going to have dollar thresholds before we start to see subcontracting reports or subcontractors reported in SAM. This is kind of a nice way if you're looking at a new teaming partner and you want to see, do they have any of those larger contracts? Are they listed in here as a subcontractor? I haven't really played with this much, but I do just want to point out, because that is another tool from the contract opportunities. You know, we've gone through the solicitation process now into award, and now we're into performance, and where can we find some of that information? So playing again, entering a unique entity ID number, we can get a list of the contract and the actual system ID. See the subcontract ID. So great information. So last but not least, let's see if I can give you guys back some more of your day. A little bit about Apex Accelerator. If you've joined me before, you've seen this, but mostly I just want to highlight, if you're looking at different geographic areas are expanding, or you're looking at a place of performance that's new to you and you're moving into that, check out the other Apex accelerators across the US where that place of performance is. There's two different websites. We have our national association, the apex.us, and there is the Department of Defense Office of Small Business Programs, who is our the federal grantor under that is in charge of our program. Boy, I try to get too many words out there at once. Yeah, Department of Defense Office of Small Business Programs. This is their website. Both of these have an Apex finder by location, by zip code. Feel free to check those out. Each one of us focus on federal contracting, but each one of us specifically are experts on what's going on in our own backyard. So if you're interested in contracting with the state of Alaska, the municipality of Anchorage, the Mat-Su Borough, absolutely reach out to the Alaska Apex. If you're looking at doing business in Washington State or Colorado, then please, by all means, check out the Apex for those locations, see what they have going on for training, especially for networking opportunities. Please, you know, take advantage of having us as a national association. And last but not least, if you have questions that you think of after the fact or you'd like to schedule an appointment, here is our contact for our team. And last but not least, well, I guess that is the last but not least, I'm going to do a final call for questions. Let me check. All right. Well, if you're like me and you're thinking about this, or you get on SAM and you start playing and you have additional questions, feel free to email me those questions. You can always reply to the webinar invitation. If you think of something and you're trying to dig up my email, feel free. Don't forget to download the slides from today's presentation so that you have those web links available to you. And if I don't have any further questions, then we'll go ahead and close a few minutes early and let you guys head off to lunch.